New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
After everybody, we're here. I'm Gil, and this is
I'm Robyn.
it's Robyn. Oh my gosh! And we're doing what? What shall we do?
Come on.
Come on, I'm playing with you. We're having fun. Rockin' the love. We're here to rock the love. See, that's how much we love each other. We can totally play around, and Robyn stays really happy.
So welcome everybody. So if you're joining us for the first time, we are indeed a married couple. Still, if you're joining us for 3 years in, we are still a married couple. And we've been married for 22 years.
Yes, we have.
Wow. Incredible.
I remember when I wasn't that old.
Yep. But we've been married for 22 years and we actually have been living apart. Gil lives in New Mexico. I live in Southern California, and we fly back and forth to see each other. However, this summer of 2024, I have been here for 2 weeks, and I'm going to be here for 2 or 3 more weeks. And so we're on the verge of moving back together.
And when she's
I'm
not
so
here,
glad.
we're going to be going somewhere together.
It's true.
So,
Somewhere. He's so cryptic, isn't he? Far be it from him to say, we're going to be going to Conference of the Americas. Will you join us? We're going to be going in August, and it's going to be super great. If you saw our show last week with Ellen Suazo, or one of our shows before with Reverend Rebecca and Peggy Shin, beautiful conversations about an amazing event that takes place in Chapala, Mexico. And we'd love to have you join us. So
if you hit our YouTube feed, you can find those shows too. Just go to the live section and look back a couple sessions and you'll find them.
or on Facebook.
Or on Facebook.
Yep. But anyway, so we're going to be going there in a couple of weeks and possibly broadcasting from there. So we'll let you know. We'll keep you up to date. But I think it's going to be a super great time. It's a beautiful location. So, but today we are here to talk about adaptability. Adaptability. What does that mean? What does that look like? When do we do it? And is it easy to do or hard to do? Or how do you get more adept at being adaptable? All of those things and questions we'll discuss in a while. But first of all, generally, this is the portion where we talk about our week because we haven't been together. But tell me anyway, well, how's your week? What's going on?
Week's been good. We've had a lot of things going on and it's been busy, like I always say every week, but it's good. Had some great meetings with some people from our community, the Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living. Sometimes to get together and have fun and do other things. And we have our godson with us this week, one of them. And so that's been fun.
Lively.
Hey, Shay, how are you? And that's been another adaptability experience. And so that's good. And that's about it from me.
Yeah.
How about you? Anything else?
Yeah, it's been a busy week. And it's really, for me, I think, as some of you may know, I started working a temporary job, and it is interesting. Many people said, how are you going to do that with all the other jobs you do? And it's a very fine question. And so learning to balance those things has been interesting, because like today that I'm not doing my other job, I feel like, oh, it's my day off, but it's so packed full of things to do that I'm like, what happened? How do you maneuver that? So it is a learning. So I'm excited to have the conversation with you in a little bit. But before we do that,
Before we do,
the good news.
the good news.
And here it is, the good news. That's right. As Shay well knows, this is the part where we talk about what's good in the world. And it has been a kind of crazy week out there in the world. So what's good? What can we find that's good, that's, that has us look beyond the news headlines? So what do you got?
Well, growing up as a Southern California kid, I was very familiar with Disneyland. And in fact, I remember the story. I remember my brother talking about being angry at my parents because they wouldn't go the one time when Walt Disney was there and they could have met him.
Oh,
And then, of
wow.
course, that didn't happen after that because he wasn't around that long after it opened.
Wow, that's a cool memory, though.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how that went down, whether they were actually there and they just didn't go see him or what. But anyway, but the 17th of July apparently was opening day for Disneyland, or the day of dedication, at least 69 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, sitting at my parents' dining room table, with the coffee table book of 25 years of Disneyland. And,
Yeah.
and I was a kind of a young adult. I mean, I was late high school or early college or something. Anyway, and also it's been the most visited theme park anywhere in the world. And a couple of years ago, it was surpassed by the Magic Kingdom, which is the park that Disneyland inspired in Florida. So
I still count that as Disneyland. Call it what you will, but the mouse is there.
that's right.
So speaking of that, I'm going to go to my good news story, which is about a mouse. So this is a story about a mouse that was this man raised since it was little, and it was supposed to be snake food, but he actually had the mouse and the snake wouldn't eat it. And so he was like, okay, this mouse, there must be something special about this mouse. So he decided to raise this mouse, this little white mouse that he called Cotton Ball. And he raised it. It's like 7 months old now. And he decided one day to take it to the Renaissance Fair with him. So he took it to the Renaissance Fair. And if any of you have been to a Renaissance Fair, they're usually out at some huge acreage of land that, in my experience, usually is very dusty. It's very dusty and usually hot, but that kind of thing where there's dirt and grass and, it's like just a vast open land, which it was. And somewhere along his day, he lost the mouse. And he was like, oh my God, I've killed the mouse, thinking that it couldn't survive in the wild. And there it was in the grasslands with all the snakes and things around and all of that. And he was beside himself. He was so upset. And he, let the park know that, or the location know that he lost his mouse in case anyone saw it. And, he told people and people posted it on Facebook and all those kind of things. And he got a call that night about 1 a.m. that his mouse had been found. And what had happened was some woman had seen it, like darting underneath looked like a stage, and a snake following it. And she thought for sure, that's it. That's his history. That's, it's dinner. And they went to this castle on the location afterwards for the employees went for the after party, and inside came the mouse. And the mouse went to the after party, and the mouse apparently just loves to be hugged and held, and he loves to be around people. So he spent the night partying at the after party, and the woman took him home, and took care of him overnight. And he's back. His owner drove another hour and a half to go get him, and he's back at home on his wheel, happy as can be. But isn't that crazy? I mean,
It is.
and such a testament to people rallying together, because generally people don't always react that well to a mouse.
That's true.
Anything could have happened besides a snake, but I just think that's cool. And I think that's cool that everybody banded together, and clearly this mouse has a very strong will to be here. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's funny because we have this new dog named Henry. I think he's named Henry now officially. And it's interesting to watch animals and watch how they have those such unique actions and unique ways, and you can tell that they are experiencing some kind of emotion, and making some decisions based on that.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating to watch.
Well, and what's fascinating to me is that it's taken this long for people to really come to more common grounds around the fact that animals have emotions, animals have memory, animals have,
Yeah.
are capable of the same things as human, which to us, we speak of oneness, and sometimes I think people forget really what
That
oneness
means.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so, I could have done the good news story about the dog I told you about yesterday.
Yeah.
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 Oh, you want to know what that is, don't you, Shay? I'll do it next week. Okay, I'll do the story next week, because it was a great story about another dog. Incredible. So
our producer, well, actually our not producing producer, has just greeted us from Unity Village.
welcome.
Welcome, Michael.
Yeah. So just so those of you who aren't watching New Thought Media all the time, we're so fortunate to have Michael Mangus and Robert Brzezinski, part of the New Thought Media team out there in the world, and they're at Unity Village right now for the conference that's going on there. And then Michael Mangus will come back to his secured location, unidentified. I can't tell you anything.
Is that before or after beer camp? Do you know?
And Robert will continue on to Mexico with us, and meet us in Chapala. So we are on the move. Just know that you are part of a group of people that are on the move, and we're taking you with us. So just make sure you stay tuned to see all the exciting things that are going on.
Oh, the tech wizards, he says.
That's right. And watch us go as we go to a commercial. Very impressive, Michael Mangus. So hang in there, and everybody out there, grab something to drink and get ready to come back and talk about adaptability. And we'll see you here. Get your questions ready. And what I'd like you to do before we go to break, or while we're on break, let us know. I was thinking during your Disneyland story, let us know if you have any Disneyland stories, or went to Disneyland when you were a kid. And we don't have to do the math on it, but it's been a while, right? So just share with us in the chat, or when we come back here on New Thought Media Network. Hello, hello, hello. We are back right here on Rockin' the Love. I am Robyn Rice Olmsted.
And I am Gil William Olmsted, and we are happy to be with you today.
Woohoo! All right. So we are talking about adaptability. And believe it or not, producer Michael Mangus, this came up before we knew that you were MIA, and that we were going to need to adapt to a situation. So adaptability in the relationships, So
Okay,
what
wait. Michael says that he's going to have to do tequila shots. What's that about? Are we that rough to work with?
No, he's talking about so he's in the flavor of Mexico.
Oh, okay, good. Glad to hear it.
Michael, he's getting in the sabor. That means flavor.
Okay, whew.
Oh my God, having to translate for you both. Muy difícil. All right. So, adaptability. What does that look like in relationship? I think that adaptability, well, actually, how would you define adaptability?
Adaptability is the quality of changing courses, adjusting your activity based on things happening around, based on things changing, based on things not being the way you expected. That's what I would say, something like that. What do you say?
That's close. Well, I actually looked at a definition that said being flexible and responsive to changes, basically. And then it went into different kinds of changes. But that, I mean, that's good enough.
It's a big business term these days. You know, that the business need to be adept and adaptable. And you have to be able to determine what else is going on in their marketplace and how to relate to that.
Mhm.
And, you know, those companies in the past that we've watched that weren't adaptable are ones that we, you know, they get further and further into history, like say Blockbuster, you know, couldn't adapt to the changing times, didn't do it. Maybe not so much they couldn't, but they chose not to, at least, you know. So anyway, so those are types of adaptability.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you bring up a good point, and especially when we're talking about relationship, that there, I mean, the adaptability in the workplace. I mean, we're talking about the workplace responsibility, right? The workplace relationship. So there's workplace adaptability and relationship adaptability and leadership roles.
Yeah. Well, adaptability shows up in all parts of our lives. Even adapting to our changing selves, our changing bodies, our things that come up. You know, if we're dealing with some kind of fatigue or something, we have to adapt how we're living our lives in order to successfully move through those things. We can often move through them, but to be really successful at it and to feel good about it, we often have to, you know, at least adjust our thinking about it, adjust our reactions to it, adjust our thoughts about it, you know, those kinds of things.
So, excuse me, what would you say? So let's talk about relationship, because that's what we know best. And I think, like, even this morning, we fell into some situations where we needed to figure out how to be adaptable. And I think also when someone else is involved, like a kid, you know, like when we have our godson, Robert, how, you know, how does adaptability live in that relationship and in our own relationship? Because when we're communicating in front of someone, we communicate differently than when we're not.
Right. And just a note on that, I think, you know, every person, every personality, everything that you introduce into a situation adds, you know, probably exponentially to the amount of adaptation that's required to move through the situation. You know, because you have to adjust for this person, but then you also have to adjust as you adjust for them. You have to be adjusting so that you're not overstepping another person over here, and so it just adds more complication.
Yeah,
The
it's
process.
like a Jenga.
Kind of.
You have to figure out where to put the piece or where to take the piece out in order to find balance. I mean, all of adaptability is working towards balance, right? And so so I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the show actually and the topics that we bring up. And so what would you say are the core values in adaptability? What would you say are like the core values, the core principles?
I don't know exactly how to answer that.
That means it's a good question, I think.
Oh, I've been stumped.
Well, I think that it requires flexibility.
Mhm.
I think that's a core value, flexibility. It requires, I mean, again, it's probably like anything in this teaching, you can say them all. But I would say flexibility. I think it also requires resilience. And I think it requires patience sometimes.
So those are things it requires for me. And I think of values, I think of things like a value of adaptation is harmony, is success in terms of of accomplishing something. One of its core values is to strengthen connection.
Okay. So maybe that's not the right word, but it's still what's required to achieve it.
To achieve it.
And then what happens from there is that you achieve harmony.
Right.
And the rest of it, right?
Right. So in order to achieve it, yes, you have to do all those things you said. Because I don't remember them.
Oh, he amuses himself so often. Drink a shot of tequila to that, Mr. Mangus. Yeah. So how do you get there? How do you, because I do think patience is an important component, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you get to that place of being able to or willing to adapt to a situation?
Well, I think in some level, patience is a form of adaptability, right? I mean, in order to, if I'm going to be willing to adjust somehow, to look at things a slightly different way, to decide that, I'm leaving in half an hour, not in 5 minutes, whatever. There has to be a level of patience with the fact that something changed, or with the other person, or with not having understood the other person's idea, or miscalculated in my own mind what was supposed to happen,
Mm-hmm.
So there becomes a place where, we have to be patient with ourselves and with others. If we choose not to be patient, then in fact, what results is we end up not being adaptable because we get angry, etc., and we don't actually adjust. Right.
That was the point.
That's kind of what I thought it was. That's why I restated it.
All right.
I like to say what she said again.
Spoken like a true minister. Well, yeah, which reminds me of the proverb I read to you. There's a Chinese proverb that says, the wise adapt themselves to circumstances as water molds itself to the pitcher. And I think if you think about that, it's like, for me, how genius is that on some level? If we are always molding ourselves, if we always have that flexibility to mold ourselves like water to the pitcher, in some ways, that's really a level of surrendering and saying, use me in a larger sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and being can we be unattached? I think, that's for me, that's where like some of the rub comes in with the adaptability and all of that. Can we find balance and be unattached? Because so many times we just we don't land there. We're fighting it.
Mm-hmm. Fighting the possibility of change, or the possibility of doing it differently, the possibility of molding ourselves to what's showing up.
Yeah, I mean, how often do we pretend to adapt? Let's just use kids as an example, where we're like, okay, and we lay down, I'll use our kids. We lay down, here's the parameters. You need to put the dishes in the dishwasher, wipe down where you've made food, da 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 da, and we walk away and we go, yeah, right. Like that's gonna happen. Right? I mean, so on what level are we not moving into being that with him? I mean, on some level.
Well, and I think, an interesting piece of that is, when is adaptability not appropriate? I mean, we adapt as water adapts to the pitcher, but if somebody were to be pouring the water out on the ground, would that be a good place for us to try to adapt? You know what I mean? I mean, like, if the container is not appropriate or for us, or somehow it doesn't fit with what we want or need, or what we've communicated, then sometimes we have to figure out how to adapt our process, perhaps, but
I hear you.
Move us toward whatever it is that we're moving toward.
I hear you, but I think you're getting very esoteric about the whole thing.
Oh,
I think
I'm
like
esoteric.
no, but I think, like, really, if we're talking about relationships, let's go back to the small picture, because yeah, obviously if something doesn't work for you, that's a whole different thing. And I think that's a whole different conversation on some level. But I'm talking about when you're in a work relationship, maybe, or when you're in a personal relationship and something doesn't work. I mean, let's use us as an example and think back to when we first started dating, and when you're doing that dance before 22 years, when you're doing that dance, though, there are things that, that I didn't know that I was particularly on board with that you did. And clearly you didn't know that you were on board with things that I did, and so it was the adaptability to learn really what the other thing was happening, which we navigated relatively well. But what I'm talking about is, like, in the beginning, both Gil and I we came from different faiths, different backgrounds. I was in the process of becoming a practitioner, and he had been a minister of a different of the United Methodists. And so, yeah, it was a little scary for me and for him for different reasons, obviously based on what we didn't know at the time. But it was the willingness to sit down and have a conversation and go, well, I'll go to your church, you'll go to mine, we'll see, we'll blah, blah, blah. And then we talked about when we had kids, well, how we would raise them, and also the space and the adaptability to be able to say, we'll let them choose, we'll take them here, we'll take them there, as opposed to being like, my way, or the highway.
Well, and had one of us or both of us chosen not to move through the adaptability process, if you will, to seek compromise, to seek a place where we could both understand, and one of us said, this is how it is, we would have missed out on
just you talk.
We would have missed out on our relationship, really.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Because we would have been blown out.
Right. And Shay brings up a good example here. She says, just this morning, she was thinking about how she's enjoying being by herself because she can do whatever she wants, whenever she wants. And when I go somewhere, I like to leave when I want and leave. And it's so freeing to be more flexible in my life in general. I'm open to a relationship though. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and especially obviously as we get older, we're more used to also having that freedom and, you know, that ability to really choose and not have anyone go, no, I don't want to do that.
Well, I have to say that that's been part of the good part about being here when you were there, is that there's you know, we both have our own rhythms for how things go, and sometimes they don't perfectly mesh, or at the very least they're just different. You know, it's just different. And so sometimes when you're here or when I'm there, you know, you have to adjust your thinking about how the day will lay out or how we'll do things, and I have to do the same thing,
Right.
you know, because I have to look at, well, you know, that doesn't work for Robyn. You said, you know, so let's do something different instead of that, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, I agreed. I agree. And I want to just backstep a little because I think what Shay's talking about and what we're talking about, I think it's super important. So say you're at that stage in your life, because we know many people who are single that would like to be in relationship and also have that concern or awareness that it feels like it could possibly be some loss of freedom, you know? And I think that's so important how you merge that and how you find that balance. And I think, you know, yeah, so what are the keys to that? I mean, clearly we can start with communication.
Well, but I just want to respond to the idea of it being a loss of freedom. It's kind of like, I don't know, what comes up for me is, you know, the idea of, you know, are you going to win the battle or are you going to win the war? So meaning that, you know, are you going to focus on this one thing right here, or are you looking at the big picture? And so I think, yeah, in the moment, sometimes being in a relationship, doing things can feel like it impedes on freedom, quote unquote. But in the long run, I think our freedom is increased because we have a kind of support and we have all kinds of things that we don't have when we're alone. I mean, it doesn't make one better than the other, but I'm just saying, I think it actually, it's partly how we look at it. And as part of being adaptable is to realize, oh, yeah, a little bit different here, but here's the benefit over here, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's like the long-term game.
Yeah.
And it does make sense. And yeah, what was happening in my head was I was thinking about, but there's only this moment. How can we go beyond this moment?
Okay.
So, but I'm not arguing that point. I was just trying to reconcile it in my head. And I think, and maybe it's the same thing, because if in this moment, if I go with that concept, we're choosing happiness or we're choosing peace, we may make a different decision. Like with, you know, if somebody wants you and I, if you want to, you know, have hot dogs for dinner and I want, you know, shrimp scampi, I may opt to go with hot dogs and just create it as a fun thing because I know in the moment it'll make you happy or something like that. You know what I mean? I mean, but either way, it's challenging. I mean, I think that it's such.
That's a form of adaptation. Excuse me. You adapt to what's going on and decide, and your part of your adaptation is your decision for how you're going to go into it, how you're going to view it, how you're going to be a part of it. You're going to make it fun, right?
Yeah, that's me. No, that is me though. But I mean, that's me. I mean, I've always been like, I've always created it as, all right, let's create this moment, you know, and maybe, I mean, maybe that's the way to do it, you know, but I mean, I was thinking about when I was waitressing and my friend and I, we worked in we worked in the back part of the restaurant, which was like the bar eating area. And one day, and she was the bartender. One day we were like, we're going to have the best day ever. We're going to create this to be the best day ever. And at the end of a lunch shift, which is basically 2 hours, I had made over $400 in tips. Right?
Which is like 2 million today. I'm just saying.
Well, somebody literally tipped me like $250.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, it was that kind of random thing, but it was the conscious decision to create the day like that, you know. And yeah, so I mean, I guess so the key to adaptability is to try to be making conscious decisions. And where are you deciding from? Because we're not always deciding from a place of what's best for me. It may be what's best for us or what's best for the moment.
You know, when you said deciding from, what struck me was, am I deciding from a defensive, protective place, or am I deciding from a place of possibility? You know, and when we're looking at possibility, then adaptation becomes doable and becomes something we want to do. It becomes attractive.
Well, and I would say, once again, based on my experience with teenagers, I would say, and are you deciding from a place of now, like in this moment? Because what I hear myself do a lot is replay the script. So sometimes I say no to something, and after I said it, I'm like, why did I tell him no for that? But it's because I'm used to telling him no. And I think same in a relationship though, you know, like we get used to saying certain things or having a reason for not doing something. And so it's like, I would say that one of the keys is, can we go to a place of now and reevaluating for ourselves? So I'm thinking it's constantly staying in the now moment.
Check what Chase said.
Don't tell me. There are so many benefits. I wouldn't look at it as a loss of freedom. It's about compromise. Yes, it is about compromise. But I think it's more than that. Yes, it's about compromise because it's a relationship, anything, whether even if we switch it up to a work relationship and how you adapt at work or adapt with coworkers or with your boss or even with your job situation, if it's not looking the way you want it to. But I think it's compromise. Compromise is definitely key. But I also think there's a level at which I really do think it has something to do with coming from the new, being able to look at it. I think when we can really reevaluate and look at it as a whole and in a new way, then it becomes.
Well, what's striking me is, I think sometimes compromise has this undertone of loss. If I compromise, that means I give something up, you give something up, nobody gets what they want, you know? And I think for me, and if you're really adapting, we're looking at how to be cooperative, right? Yeah, that means it isn't going to look the same way that we thought it would, perhaps, which is in some ways a compromised position. But if we can look at, again, the whole picture, we may see that it's better sometimes when we unfold multiple points into something, or we bring in more perspectives into what we're doing. Just a thought.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I also think though, I think it's a good exercise. I don't know if any of you have ever tried like saying yes for the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really taking that on. And it's not easy, but saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And then I think we get a different perspective. as well as it's an opportunity just to exercise that muscle, to look at the how could this be possible viewpoint, or how would this work, because sometimes we just cut it off. And I think that's part of the thing to a successful relationship, is being able to not just go to that place, and cut it off, because then you're cutting off your partner, or you're cutting off the person.
And you're cutting off your own good.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
So
I know. Shay wants to know who our single friends are.
we'll send you a list. Emails, phone numbers, the whole thing.
But it's a little outweighed on the female side. So we have a couple on the male side, but the male straight side is a shallow pool. So yeah, if you're shopping in another genre, we can probably help more. However, yeah.
So Shay says, my own generosity makes me feel good. It's good for everyone to do something nice for another person. Everyone wins. It's most likely reciprocated. And I think that's really true. Generosity, I mean, thank you, Shay. We've been in doing this project that we're doing, where we're having a weekly music venue at the center, and there's no charge, and people can get snacks and everything for free, and it's all based on donations. And what we've talked about and what we've called it is a generosity model, because we have to stand in the place of being generous to give all of this, and to trust that other people will be generous as they can be, and it will come back to us, kind of idea. And I think you're really right about that it does feel good to be generous, and it does promote more generosity. It does promote more reciprocation.
Yeah. And I think Shay said, my own generosity makes me feel good. And I think I love the word generosity. And what I'm thinking is that, for me, what's coming up is that the key to this, is a generosity of spirit in a lot of ways, because I think it's really at the base, at the core, it's really the ability to open up and to listen to your partner, to your coworkers, to your political candidates, to whatever it is. It's like really being able to listen and explore what they say, because we're so used to responding all the time, responding, reacting. And like, have we sat with it today? It's like when you ask me what I want to eat, and you're like, oh, why don't we go get turkey burgers or something? And I'm like, no, I don't like turkey burgers anymore. And you're like, but they were your favorite yesterday. Yeah, that was yesterday. But it's funny, but I mean, in a way, I get why I get it. Because for me, in the moment, I'm reevaluating, and I'm like, yes, it may just mean I don't feel like a turkey burger, and that just may be my language. Although half the time I stop eating whatever I'm talking about. But you know what I mean? But you get the point. It's like being able to constantly reevaluate. I mean, even if you love turkey burgers, if you've had them for the last week, you may not want one that day, So I think that's a key component. I mean, I think we've hit on a couple of key components, but generosity of spirit, compromise. What else?
Where we're coming from, that we've got to be coming from a space that's open and available, versus defensive and closed, if you will.
Yeah, and I think adaptability also, I think it also takes into account uh positivity on some level. Because you're not adaptable if you're like, yeah, right, whatever, okay, let's do it. You know, I mean, I think it has to do with really being able to embrace your decisions, you know, or really being able to be in that space of willingness to try someone else's or to mesh them. Does that make sense?
Mhm. I don't know why it's going through my head, but recently we watched the movie King Arthur about the adventurers who run in these races where they're running through the forest and they're riding bicycles and they're swimming and they're boating and they're, you know, all different things happen all throughout, but it lasts for several days, very short periods anyway. And I'm thinking about, you know, this group of people as a team having to adapt both to one another and to these circumstances and to things that they don't expect to happen along the way, you know. And in the movie, there was a scene where they took a shortcut, and, you know, so they trusted their person that was guided, that was being their navigator, and they got to something that turned into something pretty scary, but they figured out how to get through it. They adapted to it. They did it, even though,
Yeah.
you know, I would have been like, yeah, let's go back.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm out. But that, I mean, that's so true of all sports,
Right.
right? Because we don't know what's going to happen. So it doesn't matter if it's a football game or a baseball game or whatever, you know, you all of a sudden find yourself in a situation, you know, where you're down a certain amount, and then all of a sudden you have bases loaded and the guy coming up is the one that doesn't hit. So how do you adapt to that? You get your, you know, you pull out your best, your, you know, designated hitter or whatever you do, whatever the situation calls for. But I mean, that's what makes sports so exciting to people.
Right.
Is that you don't know what's going to happen. And that's what we're dealing with in life, right? We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's very exciting that we've been married 22 years. However, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know anything, you know? And so
we usually don't know what's happening now.
so how can we make this moment the moment that really propels us forward into the next moment? And how can we do that in an ease and grace and in a joyful way? Wow. If you have the answers, put them in the chat. No, but yeah, I mean, I think all of the things that we've said, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, Shay's right. Boundaries fit in somewhere. Shay says boundaries fit in somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, even when I noted that piece about you saying compromise, Shay, is if we are in a position where we're just compromising and we're not figuring out how to cooperate, then we find ourselves crossing our own boundaries and not being true to ourselves because we're just trying to make it work.
Mm.
You know, we'll just make it work instead of figuring out how to make it work for everybody, including ourselves.
Yeah. And the question for me becomes, you know, and are your boundaries flexible, or are they, you know, a solid brick wall? You know,
Right.
and that's where we get to do our own growing.
Yeah. Are our boundaries a absolute line in the sand, or are they some idea or spiritual understanding of something which we then work with? I mean, to me, I think, you know, it's like, is there literally a wall there, or is there something that can move? Depending, not that you have it move all the time, but yeah, all the time, excuse me.
Right. And Shay says that exactly. People pleasing is way different than kindness and generosity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, people pleasing is where we get ourselves into trouble with our own boundaries. You know, because our boundaries are really about how we take care of ourselves, not, you know, we can't have anyone else respect our boundaries. We're the ones that have to do it.
Unless the people pleasing is about us, because after all, there's only one of us here. And there you have it. We're back to one. No, but seriously, I mean, on some level, but yeah, no, I totally get it. But yeah, it's a delicate balance. It's an interesting dance. But I think it's something to explore. And especially, like you said, Shay, for those of you out there that are single or, and kind of managing that, like just entertain, like where you could be flexible if you needed to be, in your own head, just as a game. How you could, if you did have a partner there or somebody that, wanted a different choice, or I don't know, just
So like if you've decided to be vegan, can you sit down with somebody who's not eating vegan? You know what I mean? I mean, that to some people, that's like, nope, won't do it. I'm not putting it on anyone, but someone could make that kind of choice that's very rigid versus something that's a little more open.
like because I didn't eat meat and you did,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and you came to your own decisions, but that was never
Right. But it wasn't about an issue. No. And that's my point. I'm just saying, sometimes people get on whatever it is, you must be a certain way. You must do certain things.
Yeah. So just during the week, just watch your thoughts. Just
Yeah.
watch your thoughts and just see where your thought comes to you before you've really thought it out. Where it's like an old tape, like I know for Gil, there's, a certain way he does things, whether it's putting things in the refrigerator or, as he's mentioned several times, putting dishes in the dishwasher. He has a certain way. So like maybe break your own rule.
Mm.
Break your own rule. Put the milk on the other side of the refrigerator, or put the dishes in a different way, or look at them and just let them be. If you're in a couple where they didn't grow up with the same training as you did.
Or eat ice cream after 9 or whatever it is.
Or eat ice cream for breakfast.
There you go.
What?
Actually, that's good with waffles. Or cantaloupe. Either one, folks.
And we're gone. So just like that squirrel. So just think about it and see, where you can just live into that space of adaptability. And for those of you looking for a partner, just know that it may be the workout you need to open that door and let them in. So I think we're good. I think we're done. Do you have a thought?
I am just grateful to be here and grateful to be here with you and be here with all of you. And we just say have a blessed week, and we will see you again.
That's what we'll do. We'll see you again. But you know what to do in the meantime. Keep rocking the love, because the world needs it. So do that, everybody. Rock the love.
Rock the love.
See you next week.